Okay. So what did we do? Compare Amazon and Apple. Right, Vanessa? Amazon and Apple, which one is better? Now let's go on and see something important. So, I put Amazon's data in what we had before. I saved it, and I'm not gonna do any extra calculations so we would not crash everything. I want to focus on this part here. And that is what is happening in this case. So what do you see? From January 3rd to January 4th. From January 3rd to January 4th. Apple goes up $2. Amazon goes up $6. Which one goes up more? From January 3rd to January 4th. Apple goes up $2. Amazon goes up $6. Which one goes up more?
In terms of percentages, you mean?
Yeah, in terms of percentage or dollar amount?
That's a good question. I didn't tell you that because I want you to figure out what is happening. If you want to compare, would you compare the dollars or you would compare the percentages? Because you may say that for that amount of money I would be able to get more Apple stocks, and that may be able to give me more. In other words, instead of having one Amazon stock, you can have many Apple stocks. And if you will have more Apple stocks to the equal amount of the Amazon, then you would like to say which one you will get more money. In order to know that information, you need to focus on the percentages. So what do you see? From 142 to 144 is 1.27 of a percentage. From 1204 to 1210, more dollars, but because it's higher value, is smaller of a percentage. You have all the Amazon stocks. I put it in between, which means you can take all that information and bring it to the end. And have the percentages that are happening in Amazon, and you would go on and look at different information. What did we have before? We calculated average and standard deviation. For Apple, you can click it and you can have the same thing for Amazon. And I want you now to tell me, based upon this information, what conclusions you may have. And I do have people here that finish statistics, right? Good. And if you finish statistics, the question is, why did you finish statistics? In Africa or in the United States?
Nah, I'm doing it right now.
Oh, you're doing it right now. Good. So you know what is average and you know what is standard deviation.
Yeah.
Fine. You have two stocks. One is giving you more in percentage, the other has higher standard deviation. I look at the numbers. As I look at the numbers, this is what I see. I have much higher point here, and I have higher variation here. Can you tell me what that means in plain English?
What means standard deviation?
Yeah.
Is it
Apple has a higher average. Amazon has higher standard deviation.
is it the likeliness of the number to deviate from the norm, from the average price?
Kind of. Yes.
It's different.
Hmm?
The standard deviation and the average is different.
I know.
It have nothing to, so basically, we can't compare those two.
Of course you can.
We can't.
That's why you have them, to compare them.
Not as-
Victor.
I'm just stretching.
You're
I'm
just,
taking statistics.
you're just stretching. Lena,
I'm just stretching.
you're just stretching.
Average is the mean, right?
Average is the mean.
Yeah, so standard deviation,
So what the average is telling you? What the average is telling you? And what the standard deviation is telling you? Okay. What if we make them a graph? And if we can make them a graph, we have some graphs here, right? We have some graphs. We have a graph of how the price of Apple is changing. I'll take this graph and I will put it here that I will keep all my graphs. And I have another graph that tells me how the percent change of Apple is. And I can make a third graph. I can make a third graph that would tell me what the percent change of Apple and Amazon are all together. I'll put it here. I will go on and eliminate some of the decimal points. So in the graph, I don't have the decimal points. I said that I want my graph to be professional. As I want my graph to be professional, what do I need to do? I'll put some color to the graph. I'll take this axis. I want that axis to be at the bottom. And now my graph is fine. I will take these two graphs and I will go and separate them. In one graph I'll keep Apple. In the other graph I'll keep Amazon. I look at these two graphs, and as I look at these two graphs, I want to make some sense. And now, guys, your cell phones need to be up there with mine. I don't have the numbers, and I'm not asking you what is standard deviation. I'm graphing the percent changes of these two stocks. Apple on the top, Amazon in the bottom. And I want you to tell me what do you see. And I want you to tell me in plain English, not in academic terms, what do you see in the first graph and the second graph. Okay, what do you see there?
The first graph, it looked good. The second graph looked like maybe more going down.
Good and bad is something that President Trump would say. I want you to have a little bit more brains. So, what the first graph gives you and what the second graph gives you. Yes.
First graph gives you the comparison between two stocks. And
No. I'm talking about
Oh, these. Oh.
first and second. This is the two of them together.
Are you talking about the change of the fluctuations?
This is the percent change from one day to the other.
So,
What do you wanna know exactly?
yeah, exactly, what is
I
it?
don't know, I want to know what you see looking in this graph that gives you percent changes of Apple stock, and this graph that gives you percent change of Amazon. Both of them, they start from the beginning of this year to the present time, and they say what is happening to the value of the stock in percent terms from day to day. What do you see is my question.
They're different in
Apples
each
is
one.
One person at a time.
They're fluctuating day by day, but they're pretty consistent in the percentage wise. They're not going too high or too low.
They don't go too high, too low.
Apples is tighter.
So this goes close to 7% up and close to 8% down. Is this too much of change?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's more than the middle, but the middle's more consistent.
The middle is more consistent. What is the middle? You're
The
right. What
dates-
is the middle?
The dates between, I think it's the summertime?
What is the middle?
Summertime.
Good. I leave them here. This is my graphs. And I go here. Where is my data? As I go, where is my data? I go to the top. I take this graph out of here and I put it here and I go to my data. I go to my data and I have the percent changes. Clear? What I want to put is I want to put Apple's average. And I want to put Amazon average. I calculated the Apple average, it's here, and I calculated Amazon's average, is here. I want to take this number and I want to put it all the way so I can see how the graph would be if I graph the percent changes and the average percent change. I put it all the way down. Correct? It's the same because it doesn't change. I take the dates and I go on and I graph it. And as I graph it, I take this graph from here. I put it where I have my graphs. I'm gonna do the same trick I did here. I will take this graph and I will make it nice. I will take these numbers and I will put them at the bottom. I don't need the part because I have them down here. I'll have this graph. I will put it once. I will put it twice. In the first case, I will delete Amazon. In the second case, I will delete Apple. And I keep the averages the same. I have these graphs, I want to see them, right? I'll take one graph and I'll put it next to the other. And as I have one graph and I put it next to the other, I'm gonna make them a little bit larger so I can see what is happening with these graphs. Oops. Now, what can you tell me? What is going on with these two graphs? Which graph gives you higher returns? Apple or Amazon? Good, you will say, Professor, as you have the graphs, we cannot be able really to see them. Let's play around. And as we go on, we take them and we can play around. We can make them smaller. So we'll have them here. And you see the two graphs again from a different perspectives. Apple and Amazon. What do you see? I'll make it even better. I will take and I will put the 0 to be at the same point, so you can be able to make a judgment. What do you see? Which average is higher, for Apple or for Amazon? Which average is higher? Apple or Amazon? Are you sure?
They're pretty much the same.
No, they're not very much the same. Which average is higher? Apple higher. Apple is higher. So on the average, Apple is making more. Do you see it? Yes, on the average, Apple is making more. That gray line here is the average percent changes of Apple. This one is the average percent change of Amazon. Are both of them positive?
Yes.
Which means on the average, both of them increase their value. Do they fluctuate the same way? Good. Which one fluctuates more?
Both of them. Oh, I mean, in terms of volume, yeah.
Which one? Not in terms of volume. That's not volume. That's closing price. Which closing price fluctuates more?
No, Amazon.
Correct. Then you gave me answer to the question I asked before. Before I asked question, what is the meaning of this number here? And this number gives you the average fluctuation. And the average fluctuation in Amazon is higher than the average fluctuation in Apple. And we want to compare two things. One is what is fluctuating, how much is fluctuating, and what is the value of that fluctuation. If I want to see them together, is there any way that I can see them together?
Sure.
Good. Can you tell me what do you want to see? I go on and see the data here. And as I see the data here, I want actually to focus on this data. I'm going to increase a little bit the percentages, make them the same size. And I want to focus on different days. January 8th, both stocks go up. January 14th, Apple goes down and Amazon goes up. January 15th, Amazon goes down and Apple goes up. I go on and I want to see what's happening. February 7th, both stocks go down. Do you see it?
Okay, that's interesting, because there could be a correlation within the time of year.
Good. then I want all of my data to be viewed in a graph. I take all this information, that is how things are moving up and down, and I want to see them in graph. Which graph do I select?
Candlestick, maybe?
Candlestick gives you higher, lower, extreme, opening, and closing. Now I don't have one, I have two. If I put them together, I got this graph. I have this graph. Is there any other way that I can use them?
Scattered.
Correct, scatter graph. And if I have a scatter graph, what do I have? I have a scatter graph. I take that scatter graph from here and I put it in my graphs. I graph them here. And as I have my scatter graph, I want to specify what is happening. The first part is the horizontal axis. The second column is the vertical axis. As a result, if I have the graph, here, I need to format the graph, and I need to specify information about the axis. The horizontal axis is, what's the first stock I have? Is Apple. And the vertical axis is Amazon. And I have the stock. I want this to get out of here in such a way that I can see my graph and I can see clearly what is happening with my fluctuation. I want this to be the same. I want to be at the low of the graph and I can see what is happening. As I can see, Amazon goes from lower 10% to 8%. Apple is from 6% to 6%. And what I would like to do, I would like to take this graph and adjust it in such a way that this part here should look exactly what it is. And I want to make them square. Why do I want to make it a square? Why do I want to make it a square? Why did I make this graph in such a way that is a square? 2% here, 2% here. If I have it as a square, I have it in a way I can be able to understand what is happening. Do I need decimal points or not in my graph? I don't. I go to my data and I eliminate the decimal points here. That means I see my graph without a decimal point. And this graph says what is happening. I told you what is happening here and I mark it with color. I have one day that one stock goes up 1.8% and the other goes up 1.4%. I have another day that one stock goes down 1.5%, the other goes up 2.2%. I have another day that one goes down 0.03, the other goes up 0.56. And I have another day that both go down. Clear? I look at my graph, and what do I see? I see that my graph has 4 areas. This is the area that both stocks are going up. This is the area that both stocks are going down. This is the area that Apple goes up and Amazon goes down. And this is the area that Apple goes down and Amazon is going up. So the question is, usually the stocks are related in what kind of a way?
Well,
And I have a question. Usually, when one goes up, the other goes up. When one goes down, the other goes down. When one goes up, the other goes down. Or when the second goes down, the first goes up.
Well, you look at the graph.
You look at the graph. Can I generalize that?
When one goes up, the other goes up.
I get into my data, and as I get into my data, I add a trend line. If that trend line is linear, and I want to display the line, I can see what is happening. I take that case here, and I want to see what is happening with that particular line. This is the line that I have. Do I see it? Do I see it? As it is not. I'm gonna make a color for that line. I'm gonna make it thicker, and now I see what is going on with that line. What is this line? Is it positive or negative? If the line is positive, that means when one stock goes up, the other goes up. Is this line positive? What is the R square? Strong or not? Which means it's very scattered. And if it's very scattered, that indicates that there is not much of a relationship between these two stocks. I leave it as it is here. I save the line, I save everything, and I go to my data. I go to my data and I want to see what I have so far. So far, I have the averages, and I compare each one with the average. I went and I graph them, and I see what's going on with the average. And I want to know what is the standard deviation. Can I make a similar graph like this, that I can put the standard deviation there? I will take the Apple graph, and I will put one standard deviation. I'll take the Apple graph, and I will subtract one standard deviation. I will take the Apple graph, and I will say that I want to put here one standard deviation. I want that to be fixed. And I want to take, but I want the standard deviation of the dollars, or I want the standard deviation of the percentages. I want not this one, I want the average standard deviation for Apple. Why is this 0 and this is 1.5? Why this is 0 and this is 1.5? Since I took this and I copied that information.
So the money
Good.
dollars.
You need to have it in exactly the same way. And I'll take the standard deviation of Apple as negative. And I will take that information and I'll put them all the way to the graph I have here. Is it correct or not? Is it correct or not? Why I don't have everything fixed? If I have everything fixed, I will take the information I have, I put them for all of my data. I'll put for all of my data. And I see what is happening within one standard deviation. Okay? I'll do the same thing with two standard deviations. I'll take the apple and I'll have two standard deviations. And I'll take the apple and I will have minus two standard deviations. And I will do the same thing with three standard deviations. I will take the same thing with three standard deviations. Same thing with three standard deviations. What do I need to do? I'll take the apple standard deviation and I will multiply it by 2. And I'll keep it fixed. This is a percentage. And I will take 2 standard deviations for apple, and I will make it the way it is. That's a negative part. I go up and I go down. And I'll do the same thing. I will go to the 3 standard deviations of apple, fixed, and I will take 3 standard deviations of apple, fixed, going below. All of that I want to be standard deviations of apple. If I take it and I graph it, if I take it and I graph it, what would I see? What would I see?
Which kind of graph?
That's a good question. Now I have many things. Which one do I want to graph? Which one do I want to graph? I want to graph this one. But I want to graph only Apple. I don't want to graph Amazon. I don't want to graph Amazon. I want to graph only Apple. This is the Amazon average. I'll take this graph from here. I'll copy it. I'm gonna go to my graphs. I'll take it here and I will paste it. As I paste it, I have space. I want to see it extensively, and I want to see what is this particular graph. My axis is something that I don't want in the middle. I want it down here, and I want to see what is happening with my graph. What do I see here? What do I see here?
Well, the different standard deviations.
So what do I see? I see what is the average. And then I go on and I see what is happening with the variability. As I increase my variability, what do I have? As I increase my variability, what do I have? Who's more tired? You're me. Me. So when I increase my variability to 1, 2, and 3, what do I see?
Less fluctuation.
My variability from 0 goes up and down. Within 1 standard deviation is most of the fluctuation. Within 2 standard deviations, there is less fluctuation. Within 3 standard deviation are much less fluctuation, which means I would have a graph that has a situation that if this is the average, and this is 1 standard deviation, and this is 2 standard deviation, and these are 3 standard deviations, most of my variability is within the first part. Then things are happening after that. And that's one important point I need to go on and see. Is this clear? That's what it says. Around this area, most of this is happening. And if I go to my data, and I can take the average standard deviation, and I want that to be not close to 0, but I want that part to be related to the average, and add that standard deviation here, I relate everything to the average. Did I do things right? Did I do things right? No, I need to take this average here. I don't need the average stock. I need the average percent change. If I take this, and I will take it from this average, now I will have what is happening from that case. If I take this one and I add it to the average percent change, I lock it. I take this one, I subtract it from the average percent change, and I lock it. I go here, I add it to the average percent change, and I lock it. And I go here, I subtract 3 times from the average percent change, and I lock it. Do I have everything correct? Do I have everything correct? If everything is fine, I take everything I have, go all the way to the end of my graph, everything is fine, and that adjusts the graph I have here. What do you see here? Is any different the graph now than it was before? Did I shift any lines?
No.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I shift lines. What lines did I shift? The lines that is 1 standard deviation above and 1 standard deviation below. Before, the standard deviation lines were starting from 0. Now, they start from the average. So this line is an average minus standard deviation, an average plus standard deviation. Everything now is symmetrical. And I have the graph of the symmetry here to specify what is happening in this case. I want to know what do I have. I go to my graph and I want to insert. I will insert a text. What do I need to put? I will put a text here. I need to insert the text. I need to insert the text. And here is my average. I don't need that much space. And I want that to be, and I want to insert another text. I want to insert another text. And I have an average plus 1 standard deviation. And this is this line here. And I want to insert another text. That text is average plus 2 standard deviations. And I want to go and insert another text, which is average plus 3 standard deviations. I'll take it, I'll put it in front, on top of the line. What do you see? Can you? Most of the variability happens within 1 standard deviation. Is it clear? Most of the variability, the change is happening within 1 standard deviation. Within three standard deviations, everything is happening. If it's anything above 3 standard deviations, do we have any dates like this?
Sure.
How many?
2,
3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All right.
These are the exceptional days, and I need to focus what happened in these particular days. Can I figure out when these days are occurring? Yeah, from here. What do I see? I see within this particular period, we have big increase and decrease. What else do I see? I see in this period, we have a lot of variation, and I want to focus what is happening when things are changing. And I want to focus also what is happening when things don't change. And that's why I need to be bothered with all that stuff. And if I'm comfortable with this, then I'll take the break off, and I will continue in the period after the break. Clear?